Hey guys, welcome back. Took a little bit of a break doing stuff, around the house and things, and didn't really want to do metal work on this car. But I'm back at it again, you know, like that guy with the shoes. Anyway, thought I'd show you guys some updates of what's going on. Just came in from the outside, and I don't know where you live at, but where I live at, it's hotter than the devil's ball sack, and it's got a pretty warm ball sack. It's like 95 degrees outside, and that's part of the reason why I don't want to do my work in here on the metal. Is hot and metal dust and welding slag and stuff. Just I don't like it. So I took a break, trying to just be lazy, and I was like, you know what? Get me a little side hustle. So I went and got me a little job, part-time gig, get some extra money, and wouldn't you know it, bought me an air conditioner for the garage. I just closed the garage because I was outside and turned this bad boy on, and the garage is sitting right about 90 degrees, and little guy's blowing a nice cool 70. So in about 10 minutes here, it's going to be nice and cool like an icebox in here. So if you guys don't have a mini split and are thinking about, like a fan or something, I had a little fan up over yonder, and then heater for the wintertime, which heater worked pretty good, but the fan just kind of moved the hot air around. It was like that. So this thing works great. If I need to, I can kick the fan on and move the air around, but you can see that we're sitting at 87 degrees. So I'll show you that here in a few minutes when we're talking how quick that cools down. So I had some of you guys asking me what's going on. Where's the videos? Sorry, I'm back now. Got a lot of stuff planned. I got the American Autowire Classic harness. So I'm gonna be rewiring the car soon, and I was waiting and waiting and waiting because I did not want to spend $200 on their crimpers, but it was suggested I did, and I did. So these look like the simplest things in the world for $200, but I guess you need it. So there you go. I got those. So I'm going to be doing a step-by-step, circuit-by-circuit of how I put this American Autowire in here. It's the classic update harness. I also have an LS in here. If you guys have been watching, you know that. And I've kind of got my restomod AC bolted up and wired loosely where they kind of need to go for when that happens. I did put a fan controller from Leash Electronics. It's a dual relay, basically a dual relay board, and I'm using it to control my fans. And if I can get my mount here to work right, can't see it, but I mounted it to the underside here so that you can't see it. Paint these black, you'll never know it's there, and all my wiring is going to hide and tuck nice underneath the fenders here. You guys have been watching a while, you know that I had fenders, and I say had because I got rid of them. They were rusted in the front and the back. This to work right. They're rusted in the front lower and the back lower, if I get the words right. And they don't make reproduction panels for the front. They make them for the rear, so I bought those for the rear. And I started cutting them off, and I realized that my rust was in the support brackets that the outer skin attaches to also. And I didn't want to spend the time to try to hand make the pieces for the front lower fender, where that 68 has that little ridge, if you will. So I bought new ones. Part of why I got this little part-time job, so I can have a little bit of extra money to put into the car. Because if you guys have been watching me for a while, you know that when I first started this channel, my budget was $75 a month. That's what I gave myself to build cars, and that was the pickup. And I did it with junkyard parts and wheeling and dealing on Craigslist, and I've tried to carry that through out everything I build. try to do it the cheapest way possible, but also utilizing the best over-the-counter available and best design OEM style parts. If I have to, I'll go aftermarket. So yeah, that's the fenders. Got new fenders. In the meantime, I have been slowly plugging away. So I've got my fans in here. These are the 03 to 06 Chevy Silverado fans. I've got them mounted to the radiator support cover piece there. Just kind of made some bolts, and I made some standoffs because they sit on this little rubber thing. So I made these little brackets on the bottom for that. I got my Orgeson steering box in here, and I also did a double D steering shaft, which is collapsible. Don't run a straight steering shaft. You're going to get that through your chest when you wreck. Run a collapsible joint. This was like $70. Easy day. Ran some new hoses. I ran that up to a large power steering cooler. This is a transmission cooler, but just in case I get to, you know, we can do things and keep it cool. So then that led me into needing a smaller power steering pulley. So I had to use a V6, I think it was 3.8 liter 4th gen Camaro pulley, which if you do some Googling, it's like Norman 300, 302, I think is the steel version. I used the steel one. I pressed it on. It didn't line up. It stuck out about, 1/8 of an inch to 3/16 of an inch. I put some spacers on my pusher, and I pushed that on further. And I cut off the end of the, you can see it, I cut off the end of the little snub there. So that's on and lined up, and that's cut off. So that works. What else did I do? Radiator hoses. I think I'd have to look up the part number on that. I did some Googling, and I used the top one from an off application. I can't remember what it was. I think it was like a Ford Ranger or something. So the bottom radiator hose was a factory Chevelle hose that happened to fit just fine. I was able to trim about 2 inches off, I believe, the water pump side, and it fit well for my application. I tried using a Silverado generic, Amazon, eBay cold air intake. When I put that cold air intake on, most of the angling, I want to come to the driver's side here, and it just doesn't come out far enough. Like it comes out and turns 90, and it puts the tube right here into this alternator pulley. I can go up and over, which I tried to do by trying to come up and over, and ultimately I wanted to make an air box here in this little corner, but the tube going over hits the hood, and it just doesn't have enough to clear to go around it. I can probably fabricate something. I did see that Spectre makes a cold air intake for LS swap in the Chevelle, and basically it's the same as the Chevy truck version, except it comes out a little bit more and then it comes down here and then does your little 90. So that should work well, and it should work when the fender's on here. I'm just gonna make a little box right here and seal that to the hood, and should vent in there pretty good with the airflow. My IITs are a little high. I can always cut some holes in here and do some ducting to get some more air in there, which I may do anyway. That's pretty much where we're at under the hood. I think I've taken the fenders on and off about 8 different times, just getting things to line up and whatnot. I did, in the meantime and in between time, work on these little guys. So this is the restomod AC kit. I use the inline bulkhead. All my fittings are the crimp style here. They only give you 2 for the heater hose, but I got the extra ones so that the ones on the inside also aren't hose clamped, they're crimped. And ran everything as cleanly as I could. Got a new compressor on there, and I wired that up to the trinary switch. I haven't charged anything yet because again, my wiring is not done, and I don't want to charge it until I'm sure that everything works. So I did evacuate all the air out of the system and then sealed it. So you guys do AC. We're talking about when you draw a vacuum on the AC lines, it boils the moisture out of it. So you're not supposed to have these systems open. So I opened it. Was waiting on fittings. Mine was open probably a couple days, which is not too good. So I did like put the vacuum up for like 3 hours just to boil out whatever was in there. I felt confident everything was dry and good to go. Bolted it back up. Everything seems to be holding. Apparently, when I assembled the cooling system, my gaskets, the Felpro gaskets, are aluminum with a little O-ring on the inside. I didn't have O-rings on mine. I guess I was just mocking it up or something. And I assumed because it was together, and put the coolant system together, put everything, all the fluids in there, and it came right back out. So it took me about 3 minutes to figure that out, change the gaskets. So cooling system is up. Fans are almost wired. Again, I have my power and triggers that I still have to go in. Again, I'm using that AAW Classic Update harness, so some of the stuff that was going in and out of that bulkhead fitting, I'm going to repurpose and use, send my own signals through that, so everything looks clean. Ran my alternator wire to, you guys can see that down there. Alternator wire is on a little tiny bulkhead fitting. Nope, that's not it. Ha! Well, it's hard to zoom in when you're all zoomy. There it is. Ran a little bulkhead fitting down there, and probably gonna have to nip those little extensions off there. So I got one bulkhead fitting there, and if I take you around this other side here, got another bulkhead fitting right there, and that is my starter hot lead. That's a 1 gauge. That's a 0 gauge that I ran from the battery all the way up here to the front, and I ran that along the floor and things, which I'll show you here in a second, and ran it all the way up here to the floorboard. Now I did it that way for a couple of reasons. One is need a large cable to pull that load to be able to crank. The second is I had bad luck with that specific cable. Since I run such a large cable, sometimes over a year or so it works out of the connector and then it shorts to the side of the starter. Bad things happen. Or like the other scenario I had with your battery tray, if it's not bolted down, it'll fall over. So with that, I ran that cable to a starter relay in the back of the trunk, and that's going to get triggered from the key. The key is going to trigger the starter relay in the solenoid in the back, and it's also going to trigger the starter solenoid, the actual solenoid on the starter, so that one will allow power to come forward, and one will allow the starter to engage and spin. So the only time that big, large wire has power will be when I'm starting the car, which for me was great. Now that also means that I will have 2 smaller wires that have power that are going to run from the battery in the back all the way up front. I ran those as 4 gauge. I've seen people run 6, sometimes 8. I just like to do overkill, so I have 2 4 gauge wires that are going to run in the Chevelle. I guess that would be wiring tray, where your harness for the rear goes in this little tray. In my, what is that, sound deadening, I cut the trench out so that it would be nice and smooth below the carpet. I have 2 4 gauge wires there. One's going to go to the fuse block, and the other one goes to the bulkhead, which comes out here and feeds the alternator. So there will be 2 wires that have constant feed, 12 volts. All of them are run through a switch in the back, so I can use my cutout switch and disconnect power to the whole vehicle. I'd show you that, but that's all storage right now. What else have I done? I didn't trust people's metal work, so I went down and replaced the rocker and dug a little bit into this seam where this guy put this quarter panel on, which is just, the square here I'm tracing with my finger. There's just a metric butt ton of Bondo and stuff in there. I counted 3 different types of filler. So I lap disked most of that off, and then I kind of blended that in better. So I didn't need as much filler and just had a little skim coat, in this area. Then I edge primered it and I threw some Rust-Oleum on it for now. Same thing on the bottom. I still got to seal that. I got a couple cracks here that I don't know where they came from, but basically this guy had just a rusty panel that he smeared Bondo over. So that's great. We're going to get that taken care of. And as soon as I get everything done, I'm kind of working my way back down on this side and then around, and I'm going to throw it in epoxy primer once I get done. You can see he's already skim coated it with this like Rage Gold or something up here. So everything's been skim coated with filler. The only problem is some places that skim coat is, you know, an 1/8 inch thick. So definitely need the epoxy primer soon. I dug into this side quite a bit and got, you know, most of it in edge primer. It's fairly smooth. I got a couple spots where they kind of did some D2D stuff I got to take care of. And then, you know, of course, I still have holes that I got to fix on this back windshield channel. And if you look over there, I've got most of that channel cut out because I started cutting it out and replacing it with good metal. As soon as this is done, and I got most of the metal work here, and I stopped finding rusty patches and crunchy things, I can shoot this thing in epoxy primer. That air conditioning feels great. I hope to get this thing in epoxy primer here soon. Like I said, I got the mini split in here now. I can control the temperature pretty well. When it comes time for anything like paint in here, I can wheel it back in on these dollies, and I've got the 220 heater, and when I turn both of these on, it'll hold hot, dry, hot 90, 95 degrees in here, which is great for, you know, letting this paint cure. So epoxy primer coming soon. As soon as I get this thing in epoxy primer, I'm going to dig right into one at a time circuits, showing you guys how to wire this car, how I'm going to wire this car anyways. So that's about all I got for updates. I know it's been a while. I've been doing stuff, just haven't been filming it. So thanks for hanging in there. I know you guys probably fast forwarded through most of this, but I thought I'd get the information out there for those of you guys following along, building stuff, wanting to know, having questions, whatever, or just me later when I'm trying to figure out what the hell I did. There it is. So thanks for hanging in there. I'm going to go enjoy this air conditioning, and I hope to see you on the next video soon.